time on this round, but I'll turn to our Vice Chairman Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I do think if America's manufacturing policy is going to be to blame China for our manufacturing challenges, we will be sorely mistaken. It is one in a plethora of challenges facing American manufacturing, many of them homegrown, unfortunately, and I think that's what this hearing has already revealed. You know, I appreciate Germany's leadership. Your mention of Germany, its leadership during the global financial crisis, as it was the leader in the G20 to encourage countries to wind down their fiscal stimulus and to begin to get their financial house in order. Fortunately, America was the outlier in that discussion. I wish we had listened more closely to them. I'm not a fan of this stimulus. Here we've spent $800 and some billion. We actually have 1.5 million fewer workers today than when all that stimulus began. Our factory orders are down. Consumer confidence has receded to its point 6 months ago. Manufacturing is struggling in 4 of our key Reserve Board regions. Unemployment was projected, if we spent all that money, to be 6.5% this quarter. Unemployment, long-term unemployed, is at near record highs. The stimulus missed, my view, by a mile. And now we have 13.5 million people still without jobs. So I disagree with the assessment the stimulus has succeeded. So my question, I guess, to begin with, Mr. Timmons, listening to your manufacturing members, are your members clamoring for another jobs bill out of Washington, or are they anxious for Washington to get out of the way of this recovery, to reduce the costs and regulations and barriers that would allow them to make the private business investment that allows jobs to be created? What is their view?
Well, I think if you enact legislation that reduces costs and barriers, in effect, that is a jobs bill. As I mentioned in my testimony, it is 18% more expensive to manufacture in this country than it is in other industrialized nations, and that's when you take out the cost of labor. I think that's a very important distinction. That 18% includes several factors, but the majority of that cost is related to our tax burden, our energy costs, our regulatory burden, and our tort burden. We have the capacity here in this country to reduce many of those costs and barriers on our own. You mentioned that we can't simply blame other countries, let's say China, but those countries, the policies in those countries do make a difference. And some of the points that were made here about China's inability to protect intellectual property or the production of counterfeit goods, and certainly currency manipulation, are large factors. Those are things, though, that are obviously more difficult for us to deal with. Not things that we should ignore, but the things that we can deal with, and the things that we've asked Congress to really focus on are those other areas that I just mentioned: taxes, energy costs, regulation in particular, as well as opening, acting on the 3 pending trade agreements and enabling the President to negotiate other trade agreements around the world so that we're not ceding market share to other countries.
As Congress is looking at policy, you mentioned trade. As you know, it's not enough to simply buy American anymore. We have to sell American all throughout the world. But
exactly.
We find the world tilted against us. Trade agreements take one-way trade into the United States and create a two-way trade and create jobs and sales as a result. Mr. Brill, how important is it to America's manufacturing that we aggressively open new markets, pass trade agreements to level that playing field, and seek more opportunities, especially in the Asia-Pacific, growing Asia-Pacific region, so our manufacturers can compete and win in those areas?
Vice Chairman Brady, it's critical that we have a trade policy, one that not only relates to our manufacturing sector, but to all our sectors that engage in global trade, one that's reducing barriers and opening markets. As others have noted, and if you noted yourself, the pending agreements before Congress are long overdue. The policy seems to be a wait-and-hold policy, unfortunately. By delaying the implementation of the pending agreements, we're disadvantaging our ability to advance our exports. And, however, more concerning is, as Mr. Timmons noted, the lack of TPA, lack of the ability to create new agreements going forward. Eventually, I hope we will get the agreements that are pending, but I'm concerned by the fact that we don't have the tools to further open new markets.
Right. Thank you, Chairman.
Congressman Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.